Hey everyone, I know I've not uploaded a video on this channel in a really long time. I apologize for that, but I just finished my first semester of college, and because of that, I have not had the time that I used to have to be able to make these kinds of videos. I know the last video that I made was the Spider-Man Far From Home spoiler talk that I did, and then right after that I had to go to college, so since this past August, I just have not had the time to put effort into making videos like this. But I just finished my first semester, everything went really well, I'm having a great time in college, and now that I'm home for winter break, I'm able to make some more of these videos. And there's a lot of things that I really want to talk about, including the new Star Wars film. So this is probably how this channel is going to operate from now on. I'm only going to be able to make videos over when I have breaks or when I'm not at school, because when I'm at college I literally just don't have any time to do this kind of thing. So anyway, thank you all for bearing with me through that time, and to all of you who have stayed subscribed to me, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. And now that I'm back, let's talk about some movies. The first of which I want to talk about is Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Let's do this. Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker was directed by J.J. Abrams and stars Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Adam Driver, and it is the concluding chapter of not only the sequel trilogy, which started with Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, but the concluding chapter of the 9-film Skywalker saga. This film picks up a little while after Last Jedi. Rey is doing a mission, and Kylo Ren is doing his own mission, and Poe and Finn are also there, and the Emperor comes back, and that's kind of all I'm going to say story-wise. I don't really want to get into plot details right now if you haven't seen the film. I plan on seeing the film again tonight, and then I'm going to make a spoiler video probably sometime next week so I can give you all my in-depth thoughts, but here I'm just going to give you a basic overview of how I felt about the movie. Before I do that though, I kind of want to give you an idea of how I've felt about the sequel trilogy so far, because I feel like that's a good indicator of whether you're going to like this movie if you liked the previous films before it. I thought The Force Awakens was excellent. I love that movie. I think it's one of the best Star Wars movies. I do understand the criticisms with it, and I do understand that it's somewhat of a rehash of A New Hope, but I would say it's more of a new movie that uses elements of Episode 4 and uses them to tell a new story. And I just love the characters in that film, I love the action sequences. I thought J.J. Abrams did a really good job with it. To this day, I still really enjoy The Last Jedi. I thought Rian Johnson made a very unique Star Wars film and really injected his own voice into that movie, which I was really happy to see. I really can't stand the whole Canto Bight sequence. That 30 minutes of the movie I think is just pretty much terrible, and they should have just cut it out. But besides that, I really enjoyed this film. I thought it did some really interesting things with the characters, and I thought it had some great performances, especially from Daisy Ridley and Mark Hamill. And I also think it has some of the best action sequences in the entire saga. So going into Rise of Skywalker, I was really looking forward to it because for the most part, I have loved what Disney has done with the sequel trilogy. I know other people would not agree with me when I say that, but I've been a big fan of these films. But I gotta be honest, this movie really let me down, and I think it's definitely the worst of the sequel trilogy. I don't think this is a bad movie though. I think it has some really great sequences and some entertaining moments that I really enjoyed, and some of the stuff it does with the characters I thought was really cool. But by far my biggest issue with this movie is that it feels so rushed and the story is so messy. From the first 30 to 45 minutes of this movie, so many things have to be explained to us for us to understand where the story is going, and we jump around through so many different planets and locations, and characters have to explain all these things to us, and it just feels so clunky, and this movie doesn't really have its own flow. It just kind of feels like a collection of scenes for a while. There is a point towards the middle of the film where it starts to know where it's going, but so much of this first act is just so hard to get into because the film thinks it needs to explain all these things and catch you up from when we last saw everybody in The Last Jedi. But I just thought it was kind of unnecessary. Something I know a lot of people are going to be concerned about is what they do with Leia in this film, given that Carrie Fisher unfortunately passed away in between episodes 8 and 9. And they had to write her into this movie somehow because she didn't die in The Last Jedi, and Leia's a pretty important character, so you can't just act like she doesn't exist. And for the most part, I would say that they pulled it off. They just used unused footage of her from The Force Awakens. There's some scenes where you can kind of tell that the actors are working around dialogue of Carrie Fisher from another movie, and it's very apparent in some moments. But considering the really hard situation they had to deal with in that, I think they did a pretty good job with it. Of course, from a visual standpoint, this movie looks amazing. J.J. Abrams has crafted another beautiful looking film with a lot of really great lighting and cinematography. And he definitely knows how to direct really nice looking action sequences. There's some great stuff here, especially this one lightsaber duel with Kylo Ren and Rey in the middle of this storm. The finale is also really fun to look at. There's this huge space battle, and it's very entertaining. But another one of my big flaws with this film is that I feel like this is the first time so far in this trilogy where most of the action sequences feel like there's not a lot happening underneath the surface. Of course, I enjoyed watching the lightsaber duel with Rey and Kylo in this movie, but I feel like thematically there wasn't a lot happening in that scene. It was just kind of amazing to look at. For me, the other two films in the trilogy, during the action sequences, they did a really good job of investing you in the characters and what was going on emotionally, so when the action happened, you would be emotionally invested in it. I didn't really feel that in this movie. I kind of just felt like I was watching entertaining sequences with characters that I enjoy, but there wasn't a lot of development going on. That's not to say that they didn't do anything good with the characters though. I really like what they do with Kylo Ren. I think Adam Driver is fantastic as the character, and he's easily been the best thing about this trilogy. Without spoiling anything, you do get to learn a lot more about Rey and her backstory, and the movie does a pretty good job at explaining why she's so powerful in the Force. I really love Daisy Ridley as this character. I think she's also been one of the best things about this new trilogy. But let's talk about a Star Wars character that returns in this movie that I wasn't really a fan of, and that is Emperor Palpatine. I am not at all against the idea of bringing Palpatine back in this trilogy. I think it's something that's interesting to explore, but the way they do it in this film feels so out of place, and it just didn't work for me. I feel like the issue here is that J.J. Abrams set up this trilogy with Snoke being the big bad guy, and then Rian Johnson killed Snoke in Last Jedi, so J.J. didn't really have any idea what to do, and so he just kind of brought Palpatine back in the last minute. And that's kind of how it feels in this movie. It feels completely out of left field, and like the other two movies didn't really have anything to do with Palpatine, but now he's here, and he's all anyone cares about. That kind of gets to the heart of why I think this movie doesn't work as well as it should, and that's because Lucasfilm clearly did not have a roadmap for how this trilogy was going to go. There was no beginning, middle, and end decided upon by a creative team before they started making this trilogy. And that worked with 7 and 8, because to me, both of those films make up 2/3 of a compelling narrative. But since those movies are so vastly different from each other and they set up things completely different, it's really hard for JJ to come in and make a conclusion that feels like it fits. He set up all these things in episode 7, Rian Johnson got rid of them in episode 8, so now JJ kind of has to bring it back to what he envisioned when he started this trilogy. And that's really hard. This is kind of all I can say right now about The Rise of Skywalker without getting into spoilers. The story is really where this movie fell apart for me, just because it's so convoluted and they throw so much at you in such a short amount of time. And because of that, it just gets really hard to get on board with it. The Emperor's inclusion was so out of left field for me, and it just felt like it had nothing to do with the other two movies in this trilogy. But like I said earlier, there definitely is some good. I love what they did with Kylo Ren. I thought what they did with Rey was really interesting. If you're a Star Wars fan, there's definitely some moments that will leave you feeling satisfied. But at the end of the day, I think this film just really suffers from the fact that Lucasfilm did not have a set idea of how this trilogy was going to look from beginning to middle to end, and that resulted in a conclusion that was filled with things that just did not work for me. I'm not going to give this movie a score yet though. I feel like I need to see it again before I really solidify my thoughts on it. I'm feeling very middle of the road right now. I want to see it one more time, and I'm doing that tonight, and hopefully I will have a spoiler-filled review up sometime in the next week. So over there I will be able to get into this movie a lot more in-depth than I am right now, so you guys can look forward to that. But have you seen Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker? What did you think about it? Please let me know in the comments below. And guys, thank you so much for watching my channel again. I really appreciate it. Look forward to more reviews very soon. There's a lot of things that I want to see in the future, including Uncut Gems, Little Women, 1917. I've been watching The Mandalorian. I might review that. I also just played Jedi Fallen Order, the new Star Wars video game. I may review that. So there's a lot of things I'm planning to talk about on this channel over the next week or so. Also, I will be sure to have my best movies of 2019 video up at the end of the year. I always have so much fun making that video, and there's a lot of great films that I cannot wait to talk about. Also, be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.